whole another long story that I wouldn't dare get into here, but we had shortly after moving and expanding into this new space, and as I'm trying to kind of like internally rebrand the company, and we're going to grow up and be this mature operation, we had internal personnel implosion, if you will, that almost brought down the company. Really, really bad stuff that, you know, I wouldn't dare get into in a podcast, but
Yeah.
we had to rebuild the company from within, from a personnel standpoint. And it almost took down the company. We lost a lot of business during that period. When we were expecting to, we had been seeing like, you know, 20% growth year over year. And it's like, and now we're in this new place, and it's just, you know, new equipment, you know, additional equipment. It's a springboard, and things kind of just imploded internally. We lost a lot of business. Again, had to downsize. We laid a bunch of people off. We actually ended up bringing most of those people back within like 6 months, but it was what we needed to do to allow ourselves a breathing room to kind of regroup and get control of things.
Are there any, I won't push you on it either.
Yeah.
Are there any maybe tips that came out of that you were like, okay, wow, I shouldn't have done this, or I could have managed this better for that not to happen? Or
Yeah, I was, and it's always been a weakness of mine. My focus has always been on the operation from a nuts and bolts perspective, from a design perspective, and on the product. I've not been the best about dealing with people, right? In terms of dealing with our personnel. So I planned this whole huge expansion, right? Where we had 3 small buildings in a complex, and we totaled 18 to 20,000 square feet, to, like I said, moving into one big facility, 50,000 square feet. That was like my full-time job for a year, planning and actually, you know, doing the move of the facility and establishing our new operation. I didn't focus on people. I was out of touch with our personnel, with our staff. There were a lot of issues between the management that was in place and the production workers, etc. And I was completely oblivious to it. That was my biggest mistake. So I'd done all this planning and forgot to focus on the people.
Interesting. Were there things that you feel like having one-on-ones with more direct team members or managers, or things that could have made you be able to see that a bit clearer? That I guess what I'm trying to get at is, like, are there aspects that if somebody else is planning, you know, a much younger shop of a younger Motion Textile, and they're saying, hey, we're working on this big expansion, we're doing this, but oh wait, Tom mentioned, you know, make sure you are directly meeting with your team once a month or something like that to get a better sense of what people are feeling and how things are going, so bad stuff doesn't happen.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of different ways to do it, right? So whether it's one-on-ones, whether it's, you know, more frequent all staff meetings, there's a lot of different ways that can be done. But the end result, what is most important is getting the buy-in from the entire organization into this new. Really, what we were doing is we were trying to establish a more mature company culture, essentially going from a garage mentality to a true kind of, you know, professional manufacturing mentality. I was there in my head, conceptually, this is what I was planning. I didn't communicate that vision to our staff, and I didn't get the buy-in from the staff. And that, I think, in hindsight, should have been, you know, paramount.
Got it. Interesting. Yeah. That's very interesting. You know, I personally feel like, and I also know this about myself, is that I don't like confrontation as much. So I kind of, you know, will let things.
Yeah, I mean,
right? So do you feel like that was part of it too?
I know one guy that I can think of in this industry, and he once said to me, "I love conflict," and it's like, what the hell? You know, like,
yeah,
that's a terrible person. Who loves confrontation and conflict? You know. There are people who are very good at confrontation and handling it very professionally, and they're confident and comfortable in themselves. That's a great skill to have. But like, if you like confrontation and conflict, what's wrong with you? You know?
Yeah, I wonder what how his direct reports feel too. So, do you? I guess I'm just curious because I'm thinking about it, and this is something that that I think about too is for self-improvement is like, do you feel like that is why that kind of stemmed, is like you're like, well, you know, I don't want to tell them, or it was just more so, you know, you assume that they would be on board regardless?
I assumed that I could set up this new space. When customers come in here, right?
Yeah.
Or vendors come in here, it's like the space speaks for itself. It really kind of like there's an aesthetic here and people see it right away. Employees are a little bit different, you know? They don't, I assumed that if I built it, they would come in and they would have this, you know, shift in mentality, and they would kind of just glom onto this culture, like, you know, it didn't even have to be spoken. They would see it and they would start behaving differently, etc. That's not the way things work,
Mm-hmm.
you know. So it's like I was sorely mistaken there. That does go a long way, you know. I mean, that's kind of like that's part of like, you know, like your company branding, your aesthetic, and everything. That goes a long way. It's more effective externally. It has a bigger impact on your customers, on your vendors, etc., than it does on your employees. Especially the you know maybe your higher level employees will kind of glom onto that a little bit more, but it doesn't work globally within your company. You need to like communicating culture, vision, all of this stuff is something that it never ends. It's ongoing. You need to force that every single day, and that's not my strong suit at all.